Welcome to Game Devs Play Games, fools.
That's how we're doing this one?
Boom.
I guess we're
on the show. We play games, and we're playing Final Fantasy.
In case you...
Final Fantasy, what is this, like the second one? I don't know.
Are you talking episode? I guess this is the mood we're in today. But welcome back, guys.
All right, we're going to talk to Dino. After this, I want to talk about something I realized.
About Dino?
About Dino.
Oh, good.
Smooth sailing from here. So let me know when you're ready to ship out.
I admit I didn't expect Dino to secure the ship.
Yeah.
Well, must be pretty connected if he can pull some strings around.
Because he's a mafia guy, see?
Yeah.
That guy's one
Dino.
artful artisan.
All right.
Artful artisan.
Yeah, they did that. So, the thing I realized is he is a reporter for what media? All we've seen is radios. I've never seen a newspaper in this game. I've seen literature about whatever they call their religion, the cosmology. I've seen that. Never seen a newspaper. There are no TVs.
Are there?
That I've seen of, no.
Wow.
I don't know what he does. That's probably why he has to work on the side, because
He's like, I'm a reporter. I'm in between jobs because there are no reporters.
You guys ready to
all right.
sail?
Are we ready to set sail? Yeah, this is totally gonna happen.
All right till tomorrow.
I mean, I guess he could be like a reporter of a magazine. We know magazines exist.
I suppose.
I'm all sticky and gross.
Not a good way to start your day, Noctis.
The worst is when he says that, and then they follow it up with like, Prompto being like, woohoo! You're like, oh man.
Oh, man.
Yeah, 2.0 experience.
The only time we'll get to savor this for a while, because that's costs 10,000 gil to get in there.
10,000. 10,000 guilds. Let's get this out of my way. Bam.
So last we left off, basically we wanted to get a ticket we wanted Dino to hook us up with getting a ticket to the boat. The ferry? The ferry.
That's boss.
I fought crabs.
Something special.
Yeah. He's supposed to get us a ferry to get out of there. That's what we did the job for him.
And now we get, I know it's coming up, load times in Final Fantasy are great.
So how are you?
I'm doing good.
Not you, them.
Oh. Oh, TV. What?
Okay,
What?
so he's a reporter for inside the city?
I mean, maybe it could be a big city. Or what was the city? Dun dun dun.
That guy's got a gun. So this whole part in that movie...
This is from Kingsglaive, by the way.
Yes, this is all from the
We're
movie.
probably going to get a copyright strike for having this on the show, but whatever.
So it's like... that whole scene right there, like when the swords burst through and the people start fighting, like, and they're like pointing their guns and they're pointing their swords, and then like everybody's really tense and...
Is that Ultimate Weapon? Or Ultima Weapon?
Look, that's the one I was freaking out about. I'm like, oh my god, that's the Ultimate Weapon.
That's what I thought.
Or rather, I think it's like the Ultimate Weapon, and then when you beat it, you got the sword called Ultima Weapon, or something like that.
I don't know.
I blame Final Fantasy VI when they got things a little confused. Because they did the same thing, where there's a monster that you fought on a floating island called Atma.
Atma?
Atma. ATMA. And then when you beat it, you'd get or maybe you didn't beat it, maybe you just got it randomly somewhere else. It was called the Atma weapon. And then you'd fight like a redone version of the Atma monster he was blue instead of yellow or whatever. I don't really remember. Anyway, it was like similar to that. Like, hey, you're going to fight this giant boss, and then out of it you're going to get a sword, I guess.
Yeah, it's a little confusing.
Where's Specs?
Should be back any minute now.
So it's nice. Good view.
Yeah, I'll wait to share my commentary until they're done.
What is?
Insomnia Falls.
What? Is your idea of a joke? I need you to calm down so I can explain. I'm as calm as I'm gonna get. There was an attack. The Imperial Army has taken the Crown City.
As treaty room tempers flared, blast lit the night sky. When the smoke about the citadel had cleared, the king was found dead.
No, wait. Hold on. We had no way of knowing. What? Knowing what? That the signing was last night. That insomnia. But the wedding! Altisha! I know. That was the plan. But the reports of the invasion are all the same. How could every headline in the kingdom be wrong? Lies.
If only.
What else do we know? Well, we can't be sure until we see it with our own eyes.
And that means we go back to Insomnia.
Might not be safe for us there.
Might not be safe for us here.
Pretty hard to
Probably
argue
the
with.
first point that Prompto's made that I agree with. Although, at this exact moment, we're not surrounded by guards.
True.
Okay, so I guess I was wrong. There are newspapers too.
I was totally gonna say that.
But, okay, so there's one TV and one newspaper, all right?
No, Ignis said it was in all the papers.
Yeah.
Unless he's talking about all of the same paper.
All of that one paper.
I know this is sort of a tangent based on what we just saw, but I feel like it is a lost opportunity that there aren't newspapers across the world.
That would be a really cool way of spreading information, because like they do it with the radios too. It's actually really cool. It's like, oh man, you get to like hear this interview of Lady Luna Freya or something like that. And it's like, oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I wonder if the reason why they did that is because they don't want players to have to sit and read. They'd rather the player engage via audio.
Narrative like vomiting on them. You don't like when you have to read like a whole newspaper like that. Yeah.
Now,
our source of information.
That said, though, would you find it just as interesting if you could read the paper while Ignis is driving? Like you can pull it up, still kind of see the peripheral like view of the street, and you're just like.
I mean, you do it when you. Oh, I guess because I'm.
When you pull up the map and stuff?
Yeah, when you pull up the map, it shows the car off on the side. So I would see it be possible.
I would kind of like that, honestly.
Final Fantasy Tactics had something similar where, like, at some point, your character is handed I think they're called the Germanox scriptures or something like that. And basically, it's like the proof that their church and religion is a lie, and it's a heretical document. Anyway, so he gets these scriptures, and he's just like, wow, there's a lot of important things in this, and you have the option of whether you want to read it or not. It's like 15 pages of information.
I can see why people would not like that, right? Because a lot of players feel obligated to read it, and they don't want to sit there and read 15 pages.
Oh yeah,
it's the Skyrim paradigm, right? Where you're like, I want to read all these books because they're all really interesting and they build up on the world. But if I do that, I will literally never play the game because I'll just be reading the entire time.
So this is where you start really getting to see what the
Imperial Army.
The Imperial Army is like, and they talk about the Magitech soldiers, which is really cool. And this is one of my favorite things about this game. We talked about when we played the demo, that they went back to what Final Fantasy VI had made a big deal out of, which was the whole idea of Magitech troopers, which were people infused with magic that they had stolen from the Espers, which were the summons of the world. They had like drained it out of the Espers and like put it into soldiers, and so that they would be able to cast magic. And
so they are like actual people. They're just like infused with this stuff.
I don't know what they are in this,
because they seem very robotic in this.
In this one, it seems like they've taken like a husk of a person and infused them with some amount of sentience, or that it is just like a straight up robot. I actually never did try to go back this way. Just like dialogue wall.
I think I did this. Yeah.
Get back here. I don't wanna. I'm terrified.
That literally was a dialogue wall. So let's talk about the sequence with the king dying, because I think that's hands down the most interesting element that we've seen in this episode.
Yeah, it does. It definitely comes out of nowhere.
It comes out of nowhere. It's kind of styled like an FMV, right? Like, it's a lot of quick cuts to kind of summarize what happened, the most important part of Kingsglaive.
Yeah.
In a matter of, like, 20 seconds. Maybe more than that. But to me, as a player that hasn't seen Kingsglaive, I saw that and got the gist of it, right? You see the king die. You kind of know what happened. But it just felt weird. Like, it was kind of just like, insert plot here. Now you can go back to the game.
And it's like, I understand them taking parts of the movie and put them in there to, like, integrate them, but they probably should have done a little bit more than that.
Yeah, I think it was a good reuse of existing content, right? Especially because those pre-rendered scenes from the movie are beautiful. So it still is kind of a reward to the player that's made it this far. They get that little, like, really awesome detail in that little video, and they're like, wow, this is crazy. And I could see a snippet of that battle. But yeah, I don't know. The lack of, like, dialogue, the lack of, like... It's just a visual sequence. It feels very disjointed from the rest of the game.
Yeah.
I think that's why I'm so confused why they did it that way. And maybe they just did it that way for sake of time, right?
Yeah, I think it's also because they had the information in the footage and they wanted to take advantage of it.
That's true.
As you said, it does feel disjointed. The biggest problem with that is, like, when you watch that, even when you watch it in a movie, you're not sure exactly what's happening. In a movie, they don't explain it. But in this game, later, you start realizing, as I was trying to say, there was, like, the left side was all the bad guys with the Emperor, and then on the right side was the King and his men. And they, like, pull out swords and stuff like that. What you don't realize and find out till later is that's all the King. All those swords, that's all him.
Oh.
Those guys on the right are basically just, like, scenery.
They're a meat wall.
Yeah, really, when it, like, in that scene, it was half of the Empire versus the King. And
I mean, that's kind of awesome.
Well, that's exactly what I'm getting at. Like, yeah, it was really awesome. Or, like, the concept of that situation would have been really awesome had it been probably portrayed correctly. And it would have meant a lot more if you had understood exactly what was going on in that scene. To the player, because you look at that and it's like, it's a typical, like, story of, like, oh man, one day I'm gonna be that guy.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's even kind of the cool relationship between Noctis and the King, right? Is the King is what you will inevitably be, if not more powerful than him.
Right, exactly.
And because it's a father-son relationship, it kind of translates very naturally to young version to old version of Noctis. So I think that's a really smart setup in terms of the narrative and kind of giving the player a feeling of how they can progress.
Absolutely. I mean, as I said, the idea was there.
So then, I guess my follow-up question too about the that video sequence is, how do you think it would feel without it? Just imagine that totally stripped out. You go to bed and you wake up to Noctis or to Ignis bringing in the paper.
I think that would have been a lot better, especially because you would have been like, oh, I don't... Because it would go along with that, like, I still don't know what's going on, I still don't know much about the world. And then they should have taken those scenes plus some more and integrated them later when they fully explained what had happened to the player. They're like, so wait, my father died? Explain that to me. Well, a guy in giant heavy armor turned out to be a traitor, and he is unstoppable, and even your father, who could probably take on the army by himself, cannot beat that guy. And then all of a sudden the player would have been like, oh holy cow. And it would have made a lot bigger difference.
I agree with that, actually. I think that the reason they show that video sequence when they do is to tell the player where Kingsglaive is happening in relation to the game. So it's a timing thing, right? But I do agree that from a narrative perspective, it would make more sense to show those visuals as it's being explained to Noctis. Because then we're basically always on the same page as Noctis.
Yeah.
Whereas right now, we technically know more than he does. And so it kind of... I don't know, I think... And not that this is that bad, right? Like, we're picking it apart because I think it's really interesting to talk about. But what it does is it kind of like pulls us away from Noctis. And now we know more than him, so it's a lot more difficult to kind of relate to where he is. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, it does. I was actually going to say, we should probably talk about the scene that's actually happening right now.
Of us fighting our way into?
Yeah, this is actually really cool. A really cool part of the game. Like, this is like the first part of the game where, like, the first time in the game when I was playing it, that I was like, oh, wow, this is actually really cool. This is a really cool scene. Well done. This is awesome. Okay, so basically what's happening right now is I'm fighting magic troopers, Imperial soldiers in general. Like, really the first time that you have to fight any enemy with ranged weapons.
Yeah, actually, and enemies with ranged weapons are a huge deal.
Yeah, because you can't really
defend against them.
You can't really, like you dodge, but like you'll basically it makes you end up wasting more of your MP than anything.
And it means that the player has to be a lot more strategic about who they attack first.
Absolutely.
Which I think is so good as far as the combat design goes. Because it gives it a lot more of an inherent strategy to the game. Which, traditional Final Fantasy has that too. It's just usually based on, like, the enemies you're fighting and the numbers and what magic they can perform, right? In this game, it's more about what types of actions your enemies can perform, so you have to prioritize on the fly.
Yeah.
So I agree. I think that's actually really smart. A smart choice that they did for designing these enemies.
It's there's also a little mishmash of enemies. There's most of them are at this point shooting guns. We have some snipers but the snipers are weak to swords. The big guys are weak to guns. So you have to switch it up. And it's testing the player's ability to, or not even testing it, but teaching them that, you're going to have to switch your weapons up in the middle of combat.
Which is super important. I think otherwise, I mean, you could probably play this basically sticking to one type of weapon, but it's going to be a lot more difficult.
Yeah.
It'll be simpler, but more difficult.
All provisional terms have been suspended in light of recent developments. Moreover, in the wake of the news of King Regis' death, we've now received word that Crown Prince Noctis and the Oracle Lunafreya have also been pronounced.
So this is...
Don't bother!
So this part is also interesting. Nobody saw us there.
It's a good thing these things don't have a lot of windows.
This would have been a part where they could have shown part of the cutscene, right? You see this city in shambles, but you don't really know what it looked like when it wasn't in shambles.
No way back in.
Makes sense.
Makes sense? Are you serious? What about any of this makes sense? The news just told me I'm dead, along with my father and Luna.
Listen, I'm heading out to Hammerhead. About the king. It's true. If you're looking for the whole truth, you know where to find me. Get moving.
Right.
That's a good conversation. I think it's...
What did the Marshal have to say?
Said he'd be in Hammerhead.
It's probably also the first part in the game where you realize that Noctis doesn't talk about not only his feelings, but what's actually going on. For some reason, he likes to be very
removed
from what's happened. Like when every time he gets a call, it'll be like, in that case, Core tells him a lot more, and he's just like, meet him in Hammerhead. That's all he told me. And then like you'll have a conversation with Cindy on the phone. She's like, there's a new part that I want you to get, blah blah blah. And you're like, what does she want? And he'll be like, she said hi. You're like, why aren't you telling anybody anything?
That is interesting. Yeah, I don't know if that's like Noctis is just written to be kind of doesn't care about anything, or just like
I'm gonna put it back on the whole like reclusive teen angst thing.
Right, that's kind of what I'm getting at. Like, is it that they're trying to give him that angle, or is it that they want Noctis to be the kind of character that's so pragmatic that he only tells people what they need to know when they need to know?
It could be, yeah. It could go either way. Like down the line, I could see it being more pragmatic. At the moment, toss up.
That's fair.
But this is actually a really good point to leave off on.
I do, before we jump to the next episode, though, I do want to say that last dialogue was really good in that, or that whole sequence, really, because it shows Noctis in a really emotional state because he's in denial of what happened. He just heard about it from Ignis through the paper.
Yeah.
He had to go to the edge of the city and hear from Core that his father's dead before he would accept that it was true.
And it makes a lot of sense, especially if you had watched Kingsclave, because just like 3 days ago, he was in his city, the impenetrable city with its grand ability, it has weapons up the wazoo. It's like this huge power force that just seems unassailable. This is picking up immediately where the movie left off on.
Oh, really?
Yes. It ends with her walking outside the city.
Oh, that's kind of cool. Now we get to see how she responds to our...
Got it.
Does she open it here? I don't actually remember. Probably not. It's interesting, too, that they tell us that she's pronounced dead. Because she's part of the Imperial City, isn't she?
She is from Tenebrae. Tenebrae was it's the Oracle City. It's like a religious capital, essentially.
Okay, so they're not directly affiliated with the Imperials.
Well, they've been occupied by the Imperials.
Okay, so that makes Noctis's relationship with her make a lot more sense to me.
Yeah.
They don't really explain that in the game early on.
They were when they were young, they were friends, and it was assumed that they were going to grow up and have a joint marriage. And instead, Tenebrae got occupied by the Imperials, and Noctis barely made it away with his life.
Anyway, we can call it here.
Yeah. Wait a second. There's only one thing I can't. They won't let me run into things. I have no power. All right, well, that's fine.
Oh, woe is you. So, question of the day. I want to hear what you guys think about the video sequence of the king falling, because I think it's one of the most interesting decisions they've made for this game as far as the plot goes. So share some of your thoughts on it. What do you think is good or bad about the way they did it?
Yeah, agreed. We talked a lot about it. Let's see what you have to say.
Yeah.
All right. Bye. Do the vote thing. Bye.
Bye, everyone.